Today we're going to look at locating or finding a client, looking at their file and also the client schedule. When we first log into Procura, we come to our Procura ribbon, and from this ribbon or toolbar, we have our very first option is opening up on the Client tab. So within the Client tab, we have a few buttons, one of which is to find a client. And you can see when I'm hovering over the Find Client button, I also have a keyboard shortcut showing up, and that's Control-L. So either clicking the Find Client button or Control-L will get me to the same destination. Now, the benefit of using Control-L, or that keyboard shortcut, is that it will show up or bring this Find Client screen up regardless of where I am in the system. So I could be looking at an employee schedule and I could do a Control-L in there and directly be able to find the client from that screen. In the Find Client screen, there is a default search option, which is partial match at the beginning. That's probably the only search option that you'll need. And it also defaults to searching for a client via their surname. But you can see there are several different options that I can activate to find the client. Probably the most commonly used one would be the client surname. But down here we've got an option to find using the client reference number. I could scroll down to the bottom here and search for a client via their URN or their UR number. I'll go back to a find using general information search of the client's surname. And if I type in here the surname of my client and click find, Procura is going to bring up a list of clients with that surname. So at the moment I can see Christy Barker and Mr. Barker showing here. To select this client or open their file, I can either double click or press OK, and that will launch the client file for me. Now, the very first thing that pops up when I go to open a client's file is this hazard warning pop-up box. The hazard warning pop-up box has some really important information in regards to visiting a client. And this information is something that we expect all staff who are visiting the client to read before they enter the property. There is some information about the property itself, about the client's behaviour, any warnings that they need to know. One well worth pointing out here is this hazard for an alternate address. So although our client has their address showing on their Procura file, the alternate address is telling me that the client is to be seen at a day centre on Wednesdays between 9 and 5. And there's a separate address for that day centre there. So it's a really important hazard to look out for. It's probably not so common. However, it's one of those things that's really important not to miss. When I close the hazard screen, I can see, again, the client address in the background, and their alternate address information is showing here in the directions as well. So if I was scheduling for that Wednesday visit, I would be thinking about putting a visit comment in for the visiting nurse so they knew exactly where to go. You do have full access to the client's file, and there's some really useful information in there. A few areas that you will be looking at on a regular basis. For example, client assessments within the assessment folder is where you'll find any service plan information. And dated notes is where the nurses communicate information about their visits with the client. In particular, dated notes are useful to see what an actual duration of a visit is, or was if the nurse was unable to use the Procura app. At the very top of the client screen, we have the option to go directly to the client schedule. If I press the schedule button, this is going to launch Mr. Barker's personal schedule and show me any visits that we have scheduled in for that particular client. Now, Procura gives us the ability to search for a client schedule directly from anywhere in the system. I'll just close out of this client schedule and also close out of the client information screen. and remove those searches from before. And if we go back to the main ribbon, there is a couple of options here. So we can click onto the scheduling tab and then click onto Find Client Schedule. Now again, when I hover over the top of Find Client Schedule, I am getting another shortcut. So it says Control-Alt-L to find a client schedule. So either I press the Find button from my ribbon or Control-Alt-L on my keyboard, and it will bring up this Client Find Schedule screen. If I type in my client's surname and click Find, I can then choose my client again and say OK or double click, and that will launch directly into the client schedule. From the client schedule, I can't see any information about their alternate address. So for that reason, it is quite important to have a look at the client's file and their hazard information if required.